MMA Roadshow, episode number 396. My name is John Morgan, and cold coffee is with me on this beautiful October afternoon in Las Vegas. My favorite month of the year is wrapping up here in Las Vegas. I guess it'll be the last Wednesday that we get together in the month of October. And it's cold in the mornings when you wake up, but right now in the middle of the afternoon, we're just wrapping up with UFC Media Day. About 77 degrees outside.
Nice.
Just perfect.
It is. But even with it still cold, it warmed up pretty quick. It was like 50-something early on. And then I think by the time the media day started, I think it was like back up to like 60-something or whatever. But yeah, man, the other day I got out to get some steps early in the morning. I actually had a beanie on, put a little pullover. Had a little pullover right here. I had it all layered up. But then like halfway through the walk, I was like, okay. Then then the sun started coming. I was like, that was stupid.
I mean, like mid 50 degrees is like downright Arctic temperatures when we live here in Las Vegas. But yeah, then you get out in the sun and you're like, wait, it's really not that cold.
Why did I buy into this? But yeah, of course, today we still have the shorts. T-shirts.
Well, I mean, that's.
Well, that's you in the winter. Yeah, you're that way. 364 days, because there's the day you put a suit on for the award show.
The World MMA Awards. That's true. That's
true. It's shorts every other day.
True. And anytime I'm doing a CFFC broadcast, I do have briefly.
That's just for hours. That's not the whole day.
It's only the main card. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So in 1 year, one calendar year, you probably wear pants 4 hours.
That sounds about right.
Well, all right. So your shows are decent length. So we'll give you 24 hours.
Yeah, that sounds about right. All right, listen. We did just get through with the media day at UFC Fight Night 213. We'll certainly talk about that. Calvin Kattar versus Arnold Allen. A lot of other stuff's going on. I actually just got back in from Florida, man. Went down to Florida for a real quick little PFL media day that had set up. We did, unfortunately, miss Kayla Harrison. She was supposed to be there at American Top Team, but had to cancel. I think one or both of her kids got sick, so unfortunately had a late scratch there. But did have a chance to go see ATT, which is always good to go see the crew at American Top Team, man. It's so crazy how many guys and girls, for that matter, are there. You know, I mean, just fighters, incredible, and you know, the number of recognizable athletes from big organizations on the mats there is crazy. But it was pretty cool to see that the last person done out of everybody was Dustin Poirier. You know what I mean? The guy that's been there forever and, you know, has put in the work for years and years, and he's still, you know, the last one there. Everybody's gone, and he's still finishing things up. So that was cool. And same day, also got to go see the new facility for Kill Cliff MMA, which is solid, man. You know, American Top Team, they kind of moved into that palatial facility a few years back, and you know, it left the Sanford MMA team feeling good, you know what I mean? But they were a little bit of a step behind. Now they got this new facility with Kill Cliff MMA, and it's phenomenal to have two teams that good, and because it was sparring day at Kill Cliff as well, man, and it was just loaded full of absolute killers as well. And it's so amazing to see like two squads that big, but just the facilities that they're working out in as well. You know what I mean? Like world-class gyms. I mean, it's not that long ago that people were like working out in garages and, you know, just little dank gyms here and there, and now you've got these stunning, massive, world-class facilities. I don't know, there's something about that day just made me feel good about, man, this sport just continues to get bigger. There's investment in it. There's growth in it. It was, I don't know, it was kind of a cool experience.
Yeah. So when you walked through my garage gym here, you weren't quite as impressed as Kill Cliff.
Yeah. Hard coffee, is that what we're going with?
The hard coffee's gym for hard bodies. I don't know. It changes on the daily.
Yeah. Oh no, the hard coffee gym over is just a step below.
Just a step below Kill Cliff.
I mean,
but equal with AT&T because it's been around for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's starting to get run down over there and stuff.
I remember that gym came out. I mean, I remember the fact that they had the dorms there and just all that other stuff. It was just like, wow. They're taking it to a whole nother level. They're literally providing an environment for fighters to say, all right, you want to come train here? Cool, come. Yep. And if you really need, you know, if you don't have the means to stay with somebody or, of course, put yourself up in a hotel, we got you covered.
That's because and there are, you know, there are hotels right there by them as well, but then they've got the dorms as well. It's
unreal.
It's a perfect setup.
Like I remember they had washer and dryers. We did a tour years back. I guess it's been about a few years since we went in there, and I remember just thinking like, wow, they have everything covered. All the bases are covered.
It's definitely pre-pandemic before we went in there. So now you're talking about, you know, 3-4 years at this point since we've been there. And what was amazing to me, because we've seen it before, but that trophy case that they have just keeps growing. In fact, they're having to add cases just to hold all of the belts.
When we did that, did that, I think it was one. I think they had one trophy case.
Now they got 4.
And
they're all full,
crazy.
And it's every organization. And it's cool, man. You got PFL belts, you got one belts, you got UFC
PFL.
belts, you got BKFC belts in there as well. I mean,
I think was PFL a thing then, or is it still just World Series? Maybe
it was probably still World Series back the last time we went.
Yeah.
So pretty cool to see. So it was a good day. Got to talk to some of the PFL talent, and then I flew back in late last night. And we came to media day this morning. But before we get into that, I did want to talk to you because obviously I did wrap up UFC 280 on the and-a-half episode this past weekend. But I hadn't had a chance to get to talk to you about it because I want to find out a couple of things. I mean, obviously the main event is the Makhachev. Absolutely incredible. Can't say enough about how wonderful he performed.
He did okay.
He did all right. Yeah. I mean, looks primed to potentially be a champion for quite some time. But that division is very difficult to stay at the top of for long. So, I think everybody's a little fast sometimes to say, welcome to the Machida era, right? Welcome to the Makhachev era. Here we go. But I will say, I mean, he certainly has the skills to potentially reign for a while, but we'll see how that all plays out in time. But almost more interesting, I was really curious to find out what you think about the Sean O'Malley moving all the way to number 1 in the rankings, because I've seen some reaction to it, and I feel like it's about 50-50 right down the middle on whether they like it or whether they don't. I'll just say
Where was he at before?
He was number 11, but Petr Yan was number 1, so 11 beats 1. He moves to 1.
That's MMA math.
But I'll be honest, I turned mine in, and I'll lay out my rankings here. I turned my ballot in. I had Merab Dvalishvili as number 1, actually. I have Marlon Chito Vera as number 2. And then that's where I had Sean O'Malley as at number 3 with Petr Yan behind him at 4, then Dillashaw 5, Sandhagen 6, which I think those 6 is kind of where it's in. Because to me, I think, you still have to respect the head-to-head result of Chito over Sean O'Malley, which, I mean, Petr Yan at 4 may seem a little bit extreme, but he has had the 3 losses now at this point, which, you may say, okay, well, one of them's controversial, one of them DQ, I don't know. But still, nonetheless, I mean, I guess you could say they're all controversial, but you still, I think, have to respect it. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I had Sean O'Malley at 3, but I get the people that say number 1. If Jan was number 1 and you beat number 1, you get to be number 1. But I don't think that's always the case, right? I think you still got to try to factor in the head-to-heads a little bit.
Yep.
So my ballot had him at number 3, which I don't think is any kind of an insult to Sean O'Malley. I mean, that's the one thing that I don't think you can deny here is that he deserves to be up there in those very upper echelon. But I'm just curious, did the number 1 shock you, stand out to you, or are you on board with it?
I mean, I agree with the whole MMA math side of things. Like, all right, if you beat number 1, you're kind of at number 1. But I like and I agree with the past one-on-ones as well. I mean, like, you can't put them above the guys that are right there that didn't get the shot to take on the number 1 guy, and they beat you. They should deserve to be above. So when I look at your rankings here, him at 3 and Jan at 4, I think that's a solid move. I mean, it wasn't like Jan, you can't put him at fucking 12th. You can't take him that far down and dropping down to where he did. I think that's a good placement for him. But O'Malley, jumping up to 1. I mean, I think that's just riding the hype train, and people just, I mean, granted, these picks are done by people that are just, making their decisions, and writing whatever sort of talk amongst themselves. I mean, it's not like that's what the UFC exactly thinks either. I mean, this is writers and reporters and people off to the side. I think if they probably would do the same sort of thing here and break down who's beaten who's beaten who, it would be closer, I think, to your rankings. I'm not upset by it by any means because it did beat the guy that was number 1, but you're right. How do you put him over top of a guy that just beat him not that long ago?
That's kind of what I think. That's kind of what I think. So, by the way,
11-3 is a huge fucking jump.
Still a massive jump.
I mean, 11-1 is a crazy jump, but I mean,
and it's not that if you're at number 3, you can't give number 3 a title shot if that's what you want to do next. I mean, obviously the UFC can give number 100 a title shot.
They gave him the number 1 guy. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, they can do whatever they want. But it doesn't look weird. Like I can't see the general public going, why are you giving number 3 a title shot? Like, well,
Yeah.
well, especially if you're like, well, Merab's number 1 and they're not going to fight whatsoever. You know, we've already got this fight.
Yeah.
At that point, then maybe you do make an argument of why you're not giving it to Cheeto because you know, so you could have that argument, but
it's just weird because the fight had so many people on the opposite side of where that decision went that it's weird that he would get the number 1 nod, especially if some of those people that were complaining have anything to do with the actual process.
That's
you
a
would
good
think that
point,
that
too.
wouldn't have happened.
And I thought about that as well too. You know, if Sean comes in and starches number 1, maybe you go, can't deny him. I mean, it was so convincing. It was such a thorough destruction that you have to. But it wasn't. I will say though, I'm happy to see that it looks like the storyline is coming back. At least what I've seen among, I think even fans and media especially, that I'm seeing a lot of people kind of backing off and saying, hey, I went back and watched it again, and this was a lot closer, right? Because I came out of it on Saturday saying, guys, I was a little surprised that everybody was saying, robbery. This is complete and utter robbery. To me, 2 and 3 were clear, and 1 was very, very close. And so, you know, I didn't think it was right. But it does feel like now people are coming back a little bit and saying, you know what, I watched it again, and not a robbery, very close fight. And I'm happy to see that because I thought that was a little surprising to see that everybody was just on the train that no way this was Sean.
And I think I probably did pick Sean when I was watching it first. But again, I was, you know, when we discussed this earlier in media day, obviously anytime you make a pick or anytime you put yourself on one side of the line, it's hard to not be sort of biased, watching it.
Why I don't bet. Because
so
I can't separate myself from my money.
I was heavily hoping that Sean would, because that was the only one in our whole staff that actually picked him. So I was like, come on, make me look good. And I remember after the first round, I was like, okay, it's a lot closer and tougher. And I was like, there were moments where I was like, you saw that Sean was there, but then I was also like, wow, this might not go the way that we want it to go. But at the end of it, I didn't by any means feel like that it was a robbery or that it was the wrong decision. I could see where if it went the other way, I wouldn't have been upset or sad. But again, I was looking at it very, very biased in one direction because I wanted to look like I knew what I was talking about when I made that pick. But yeah, to jump all the way up and to have that many people that are involved with the rankings process pick him above the other guys is a little bit shocking. I mean, I could tell you in a week or in a month how many times I look at the rankings. I spend 5 minutes, and it's usually like during a fight week. I'm like, wait, what ranking is this going in there? Because everybody's making something out of it. I think most people that really watch the sport, I mean, like they don't care about the rankings as much because we figured out years ago that it's not like the UFC puts 1 against 2, 2 against 3, 3 against 4. They pick the guy that's has the hot or heavy hand or the woman that's going in there starching the other ladies, and they put her in a title shot. So like the fact that he jumps up, good for him, but it doesn't really matter anything. It's all just perception, For the people on the outside that aren't knowing maybe who these fighters are, they'll look at that number and then they can initially in their heads put some sort of value to what this fighter's worth is. So they can look and say, oh, that's the guy that won that fight over in Abu Dhabi. Man, he's up at number 1. He must be something. He's the guy that's going to get for the belt soon. Whereas the other people that know what's up, they're like, wait, but what about Merab up there? Mm-hmm. What about Cheeto up there? What about these other guys? So I don't put too much value in that particular thing. Just in terms of, I think when it gets to the point where when it's a contender fight or when a fight could possibly be a contender fight, it gives us something else to sort of chat about and add some extra value.
It's a discussion point.
It's just a discussion point.
It was if it was like, hey, the UFC only gets the guy that's number 1 a title shot,
right?
Then that would be a big deal.
Then I think people would be in a little bit more of an
just like, what do you think? What do you think of that? But I will say, if anybody wants to see my full bantamweight rankings, head on over to patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow. For as little as $3 a month, you can help support the show. You can get the exclusive and a half episode, and you can see my rankings.
Yeah. What was TJ at? What was TJ at before this fight?
TJ coming into the fight was number 2 or 3. He was up there top. Yeah.
So you didn't really set him back too far with that.
I set him back down to 5. Yeah, because he just.
he fought the champ.
He fought the champ. He just beat Sandhagen. You know what I mean? So I feel like that was.
That's another.
You know what I mean? Another head-to-head that I didn't want to. I didn't want to slip him below Sandhagen, even though.
And you don't want to drop Sandhagen too far after that loss either.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's tough. Okay, yeah, no, that's good. So you kind of in that sense, laid out your top 5. So that's, I guess, a free sneak preview of his top 10.
Well, this time. I mean, but if you want
But
to
yeah,
see
for
it
future,
for future, you want to go over to Patreon.
So you're gonna start doing that every time, huh?
Maybe if it's I think if it's interesting discussion point, like I think it's kind of fun because that was one that I wasn't sure about. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, it definitely helped lays it out.
And by the way, and you talk about sliding Sandhagen down. Don't forget Sandhagen had beat Song Yadong as well. So to me, it's like TJ beat Corey beat Song. So there you go. You put them right in order.
If somebody can get glorified for beating your dong, I mean,
wow!
I do it on the daily, and nobody gives me any praise.
I'll put you number 7. Oh man! All right, listen.
Trust me, I beat your dong soundly.
How are we recovering from that? How are we going? What is going on here? I guess the other big talking point that still remains is this whole TJ Dillashaw thing that you bring up there.
Yeah.
How far to drop him, who he should have been. I've had some time to reflect. When I did the NF episode, kind of one of the things I said is that it's just an unfortunate situation, and because I do get it. Like, if you're TJ Dillashaw, I understand why you think you can compete. You know what I mean? Like, and you want to take your title opportunity, and you want to see what might can happen, and you have this near unrealistic belief in yourself as to what you can accomplish. So I get why you go out there. I saw some people saying that, hey, well, Mark Goddard, if he knew about it, he should have stepped in. But he didn't know that, the injury was going to happen that easily, and that was going to be an issue. And I thought Mark Goddard stayed on top of it once it identified. But the thing that I have, and I said it over the weekend.
Didn't it get identified in the back?
Well, I know, but it did. But, I don't think that he knew, hey, it might come out like on the first time I use it.
And I'm sure they disclosed it to him in the most scary words to where that it would cause an issue.
It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal.
Just letting you know, hey, my shoulder's been kind of slipping a bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's been going in and out, but don't worry, it's not going to affect my fight. Just give me a chance.
But I've seen a lot of people, and it was kind of my take around too. Is I think if anybody's going to stop it, because look, the commission, the tests that they do, the mobility tests or the inspections, they don't do a lot. You know what I mean?
They don't make him raise his arm up and down.
No.
Can you take your arm and raise it out? Okay, now make a circle. Oh, is that your shoulder that just popped out?
Look, the most
it looks good.
Most I've ever seen them do is feel the hands just to make sure they're not broken.
Yeah.
And ask. I've seen him ask a guy to do push-ups before. That's it. That's the most I've ever seen.
What if a push-up
would
would have put his shoulder out?
I wonder. But even that I've seen a handful of times in my 20 years of doing this. You know what I mean? So it doesn't happen very much. So the commission's not going to catch it.
Yeah.
But I have seen this kind of prevailing thought that the team around him could have maybe or should have maybe told not to. Now, again, the team around him works for him. He doesn't work for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not like they can say, we're preventing you from going out there. He can be like, no, you're not. I'm going out there. I pay you. You don't pay me. So I'm going out there. So that's tough too, but it's just so hard. Like I think everybody wants to find who messed up here. Where was the fault? And I just can't, because I feel like I understand the position of everybody involved, and
including TJ,
who isn't sure, who has missed on some paychecks over the years and probably wanted to get that nice healthy paycheck to support his family. Got a wife and kids he's got to take care of. Who doesn't know that he'll get a title shot. It's not as if like you pull out of a title shot. It's not as if there's some kind of agreement that, well, yes, you had earned this title shot, so don't worry, buddy. Hey, when you're back, you immediately get a title shot. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now, again,
the timing worked out for this one.
Yeah, if there was some kind of guarantee in place, we're like, hey, listen, man, I think it's best if I withdraw from this, but can you guarantee my next fight will be for a title? Maybe you could talk about it, but that's not realistic.
No.
So I'm having a hard time looking at anybody in this situation and being like, this is on you, although it just sucks at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, 'cause you definitely see both sides. I mean, we say it a lot of times when we see a fighter getting beat senseless out there. We're like, why doesn't the corner stop the fight? Because the corner wants to give the fighter every opportunity to do what they know that they can do. And then to have a team knowing that even if a fighter – I mean, how many times have we heard from people saying like fighters, nobody's going in there 100%.
Right.
If he's able to throw his punch, if he's able to do whatever. I don't think they understood how bad that pressure, what Aljamain was going to do. But, a lot of that could be, too, just that initial sort of flurry and then that initial sort of takedown just set it back. Maybe when he went through training, maybe when he was going, even in leading up to it, he was able to do a lot more with it. But maybe, with Aljo taking him down and putting some extra stress on that shoulder, it just made it pop out and become more of a factor early on. But man, if there was ever any bit of quit in TJ and any normal human, he would have stopped early on.
Boy, you can see how
when
much
that
pain he was
happened.
in. You could see how much pain he was
Unreal.
in.
But he was like, I'm not going to stop. And at that point, like that just showed me that he could have had his teammates, his whole team yelling in his ear minutes before he walked out there. But when you see what he was willing to go through while in the fight, you think anybody was going to be able to talk him out of it? Like, I guarantee not.
Great
You
point.
know, I mean, especially with, like you said, missing paychecks, having a family to take care of. I mean, like, who isn't going to go in there and willing to take physical pain knowing that you're providing for your family?
Right.
I mean, like, I think anybody listening to this would be like, yeah, I'd take some shit. You know, I mean, and even that, he wasn't in pain the whole full time.
Right.
It's just in those moments where it popped out. And even when I mean, it just sucks because I think we had such high expectations on what that fight was going to be, and it just went in there because we were expecting two fighters that were at the best of their shape. TJ looked like an absolute beast going in there. Aljo looked like a beast. They both looked in top physical form. So we had such high expectations that when we couldn't get it and it wasn't something that initially arose from the fight, I think a lot of people just felt cheated, But again, these fighters are going out there and yes, it is entertainment for us, but that is their life. And I mean, if you know that you can muscle up and you can just grin and bear it, knowing that you're going in there and you're fighting, you're trying to provide for your family. It wasn't like a bad TJ with a bad shoulder is still 100 times better than me going in there trying to fight.
It is. I mean, listen, I do feel bad for, while I was on the PFL trip, I was speaking to somebody who was like, I feel like I got robbed of $15. If it's $75 a pay-per-view, that we're basically paying $15 a fight, I feel like I got $15 taken out of my pocket. So I can understand that. If anybody that paid for it and feels like they got, robbed a little bit, I can understand that. I do feel really bad for people that had money on it. If you're wagering on this
that I can see.
And you're like, dude, how,
would you bought that for that? Did you buy it for the co-main event?
No.
Nobody bought it for the fucking co-main event.
No, but I get what you're saying. If you're saying,
but that's what I'm saying. Like, whether they're saying, like, oh, I missed on $15, bro. It was all about that main event. This was an extra bonus.
It was.
This was an extra bonus. This was like,
Malayan too, bro.
Exactly. You
got 15 back on that one.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much other
$30 fight.
I hate when people try to be like, oh, this, that. I mean,
but
like,
if you bet on them, like, I feel bad because you're like,
that's a whole other story.
Hold on, man. I spent, especially these people that are like high level analysts that are like, how many hours did you spend breaking down, theorizing, looking at tape, matching up tendencies, only to find out, like, oh, you know what the one thing I didn't factor in was? I didn't factor in that my guy couldn't use his left arm.
Yeah.
That was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I do.
That puts a whole other thing. I mean, when you're game of, that's just degenerates. Keep it up, guys. That's good stuff. But you're right. I mean, like, that's a whole other thing. I mean, like, as just being spectators watching it, I get it. Not every guy's going to go in there 100%, and if they're willing to still go out there and fight and entertain me, even knowing that he's not 100%, dude, good on you, But yeah, if I'm actually trying to, wager on it, but that's the same thing that when we watch a fight, we look differently upon it. Like, even when we're trying to watch it, I'm always like, man, no, he got robbed. That decision should have went the other way, and it's all because I made a pick or I put some money on it. It makes me view it differently. If you're able to take that out of it, I think most of these guys would look it. So but I get it. There's so many other factors, and everybody, when you make that pick, you're like, oh, I know something that somebody else doesn't, and you feel so smart, and you feel so good, and when you're willing to put your hard-earned money, and then to have it to where you're like, oh, I didn't factor in the fact that, yeah, like you said, my fighter is, he's not all there, and not just in a way of like, oh, I've been having a sore lower back. Like, if you're taking one of your main weapons away from you, that's very limiting. Who's going to bet on that person? Not many people. So I can see where those people would be upset, but
angry.
But still, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm sure you've gotten some picks and made some money off fights you probably shouldn't have. I guess it's just the law of average. Every once in a while you're going to get something, but it's never usually like this where a fighter is going in there with knowledge that would affect how you would bet normally. But it's still entertainment. I was entertained.
Oh, yeah.
I was more just like, how long can he possibly keep it up? I found myself watching it differently because I was like, man, is Aljo going to be able to – when's he going to put him away? When's he going to do it? And I was like, when's he going to tap? When's he going to whatever?
Yep.
When's he going to something? And then I immediately was just like – and then watching that moment when he goes over into the corner and watching this coach just massage it back into place, and that was the fight completely changed. And in that sense, that you're getting different money's worth right there because you're seeing something that you've never seen before
Right.
like that. I've never seen anybody go
That's
in there
true.
and just have that sort of interaction. I can see where some would be losing their minds at that point, but at the same time, I was just like, it was such a bizarre spectacle watching it. But at the end of the day, I still feel like TJ's as tough as they come. I would have liked to have seen that fight with them both being 100%, but I guess maybe we're lucky when we get the fighters going in there 100% on both of them.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly not mad at TJ for it. I completely, like you said, when you start breaking down the all the variables of why somebody would go in there doing it, when else is he going to get a title shot like that? I mean, it was just everything worked in a perfect storm to get him that title shot and make that even happen. And then to walk away thinking that it was going to be guaranteed. I mean, this is the guy that spent time away for cheating in the sport. Like, he's not Connor. He's not somebody that can come in and has this like golden ticket where he's like, hey, when you're back, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
Trust me.
Yeah. There were already people that were incredibly upset that he was getting it.
That
what
he was even
what if
getting
he'd
it?
have withdrawn again? And
Yeah.
tough.
So I mean, I certainly, it sucked that we didn't get the fight that we wanted to, but I mean, again, there's so many fights, man. Like everybody that's upset about it will be not upset in like 2 weeks.
Yeah. They move on.
They move on.
All right, listen. Light media day today for UFC Fight Night
Super light.
13. It was me and you and one other person, and reason for that is some of our Las Vegas contingent is still making their way back from Florida for the PFL media trip. So they weren't able to make it back in time, and several others have also made it out to Anderson Silva versus Jake Paul, and so which is in Phoenix, which is close, so make sure a lot of makes sense that a lot of the Vegas crew would head out there.
Do you call it Anderson Silva versus Jake Paul?
Yes, for me it's Anderson Silva versus Jake Paul. I don't care what the poster says. No, that's right. It is. To be fair, it is Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. So my apologies to Jake Paul.
Yeah, man. He's going to listen to this and he's going to be like, man, F that dude.
That guy never giving me my credit.
Guy never gives me my credit.
All right, listen. So I wanted to get your temperature on this because I got to be honest with you. Now, I think it starts a little bit earlier, so it's probably going to overlap us a little bit on Saturday in terms of our coverage of UFC Fight Night 213. But I'm going to have this thing pulled up, man. I'm interested by this fight, man. And I know a lot of people, kind of write off anything that Jake Paul is involved in, but this one has captivated my imagination a little bit, man. And I just – Anderson Silva, one of the greatest of all time, of course. I mean, the run that he had when he was champion was unbelievable. If you weren't around during that time, it is hard to contextualize how dominant he was and just how much it seemed like he was light years ahead of everybody else and just operating on a different level. It's hard to get people to get that. But now he's 47 years old. And so, Father Time is undefeated, of course. And that, obviously we saw the performances tail off towards the end of Anderson Silva's UFC career, but that is against other elite level world class mixed martial artists in a cage fight. This is boxing, and it's against a guy in Jake Paul who is a great athlete. There's no question about that. Who does have the financial resources to dedicate himself to this and to train and to take this seriously. Like, Jake Paul is taking this seriously. Like, does he clown around and promote? Yes, that's part of what he does. But in terms of the craft of boxing itself, like, is he serious about it? Yes, he is. And I'll be honest with you, when I look at this, I don't know that I can properly predict what's going to happen. I am a little bit shocked to see that Anderson Silva is an underdog. Like, to me, even at 47, Anderson should still be the favorite, but maybe that's my UFC and MMA bias coming into play here.
Yeah.
I will be honest with you. I'm scared to death that Jake Paul is going to knock out Anderson Silva. And, I'm afraid. But I believe Anderson Silva's win. I believe Anderson Silva is still Anderson Silva enough to beat Jake Paul in a boxing match. I believe he can still move enough. I believe he can still evade and strike enough. But Jake Paul is 22 years younger, man.
Yeah.
That is not a joke. So, what's your temperature for this? Are you excited to tune in? Or are you just going to try to wait to see some ripped highlights on social media? And are you or is it tugging at your heartstrings for Anderson Silva, or are you just like, whatever happens, happens?
I just don't know if I can get work to pay for that one, and I'm not going to go out of pocket to pay for it.
I mean, that's one of the greatest of all time. I believe that.
But I'll be working an event at the
anyone
same
working
time.
for a leading mixed martial arts website who will be involved in probably video production post-event should probably make sure that they watch the event in its entirety so that they have a full understanding of exactly what it is that you're covering.
But, at that same time, I'm supposed to be watching the fight that will be sitting at the actual venue. Now if we can talk the UFC to put it up on the TV like they were joking, I don't know if they were serious or joking about how they're like, maybe we'll put it up on the screen.
I'm pretty sure they were joking, but I'd like to.
I'm like, can we make that happen?
Yeah.
Can we make that happen? I mean, there's not many of us here. Can we do this? I do like it. I'm in fact, in terms of, am I excited to see the fight happen, or am I interested in it? I am interested in it. But like you said. I saw that little clip of them sort of dancing the other day. Jake is every bit as big as Anderson.
100%.
He's a big guy, but I think the difference is that youth and that energy that he's able to bring. My fear is that Silva, while maybe if he doesn't get knocked out, I mean, he's going to be, I think, having to evade a lot of that fight. That maybe Jake, even if he just does, I just feel like he's going to outpoint him, because if Anderson spends all his time trying to evade and just counterpunch and just sits on the back foot moving around and evading, he's not going to be scoring.
Right.
And I just have a feeling that Jake, with youth and then his confidence and just watching some of the training footage, he's got great hands, man. I mean, you could definitely see that the work that he's putting into it. And it doesn't take much if you have one fighter that's throwing strikes and another fighter that's not throwing strikes. It's pretty easy for the boxing judges to lean one way. Jake does have the power to knock out Anderson, but if giving Anderson all the credit of Anderson still being Anderson, he's going to be evading a lot of those shots, but he's still going to take some of those shots, and some of that activity might weigh in the favor of Jake. So even if it doesn't go into a knockout, I'm kind of leaning Jake's going to get it just for activity. Just for activity. I just don't know if Anderson's going to have the power and enough activity to hurt Jake and finish Jake. I don't think he's going to finish him.
Break my heart.
It doesn't mean I wouldn't be happy if Anderson goes out there and starches him. I just feel like seeing the body of work that Jake's done and having that youth and just the size. I think the last guys that Anderson has fought haven't had what I think is the power of what we're seeing in Jake. And it's that power that knocked Tyron out. It's the power that knocked Askren out. It wasn't even like it was like this fine-tuned boxing. I think the crisp hands and good form is going to be what can help him outpoint Silva. But I think in terms of that bit of power to actually end the fight, I think it's going to be leaning in Paul's favor, because Anderson, when have you ever just seen him just throw one big haymaker trying to take the guy's head off? He either tries to do this sort of precise pat, wear him down, and then eventually start getting to the point where he could do something. I just don't know if he's going to have the time to work that while still having to evade these big power punches. I guess in this one, I'm gonna lean Jake.
Anderson, I'm pulling for you, dog. I'm just saying.
I think everybody's pulling for. Who isn't pulling for Anderson Silva?
Yeah,
I mean, Jake's doing a really good job of picking these people with names, but at the very end
absolutely.
of their career.
Absolutely.
If you're talking about Anderson Silva when he was in his 30s,
not even
it's not even close.
Not even a contest.
I mean, but they see power is the last thing to go. I mean, fortunately for Anderson, he's still got great feet. He's still got great hands, but the chin is not going to be the same. One or two of these shots from Jake and Anderson will go down. I mean, fuck. I mean, this is going to sound bad. I mean, like, Weidman knocked him out with just not even the biggest touch on his chin. He was walking back a little bit, and it was just a proper place on his chin, and it took him down.
Right.
Jake's throwing the power that he's putting in some of these things. If he catches them flush, it's I don't know. I mean,
I'm
and
not
it
gonna
just
be happy on Saturday night.
I know it just feels like this crazy circus sideshow is still. I just don't see it ending on this one. Would I be happily surprised if Silva goes out there and pieces him up? Sure, but just like you said, Jake's doing the work.
Is it done?
He's not taking any of these guys lightly.
If Anderson knocks out Jake Paul, is that the end of it? Is the Jake Paul?
No, he'll still call somebody out.
Yeah,
because he'll still.
Because they're still like influencers or
yeah,
other.
but I mean.
He
could still try to call out Diaz. He could still try to call out Connor. I mean, it's not like the kid's popularity is going away.
True.
I mean, like this is just one thing, and then he just says, "Yeah, I just lost to the greatest of all time, a guy I respect." They have respect. I mean, Anderson respects even what Jake's doing and what Jake's put into it. It's not like he's shaking it lightly, but by no means do I think the Jake Paul sideshow circus, whatever is going. And this is a guy that he's obviously the money, all the money he's put into it. He's all in on boxing. He's just gonna he'll pick different other ones. But I mean, even if he lost against Silva, doesn't mean I wouldn't want to watch him fight Diaz, or I wouldn't want to watch him fight Connor, or I wouldn't want to watch him fight XYZ.
True.
I certainly don't give a F about a Woodley rematch.
No.
I'm like, I don't care about that. You know, I mean, I know that Woodley would like to see that again, but what for?
I know.
You know, there's no heat. There's no real heat. There's no real anything there. But at least with Diaz and stuff, it's just like it's Diaz. But I mean, people are gonna hate me too, and I'm not sure where I would initially lean on that one either.
You know what's gonna happen? He's gonna call it Nick Diaz, not Nate Diaz.
Boy, who wouldn't? That'd be fun. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the guy that hasn't fought in years. But again, I mean, this is a guy that's still around the sport and he's still training. Right. But is he training at the level of Nate is? I don't know. I don't see any footage or anything like that. But that would be because then that would still set up the Nate one afterwards.
Absolutely.
This kid knows what he's doing, man. He knows what he's doing, man. But everything, you know, as cheesy as whatever, anybody that's listening to this, I mean, you watch any of the footage, try to say that the kid is not doing the work. You're lying. You're lying. He's putting in work. I mean, you see the clips of what he used to look like and see clips of what he's doing now. His form looks good. I mean, he's got power and he's got youth. He's got good size, man. And he's got some Ohio roots. So, I mean, can't hate too far on him.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. All right, listen, we got to talk UFC Fight Night 213, but I did want to mention briefly Bellator versus Ryzen on New Year's Eve. Have you booked your flight to Tokyo yet to cover at Saitama Super Arena for New Year's Eve?
Boy, I would like to. I think there's still some of those Nigerians that run that nightclub that I was able to get out of paying that strip club. I think they might still be looking for me at the airport.
Oh, that's classic.
But no, I would love to go. I mean, for something like that, I would love it if we'd go. But man, I won't hold my breath for it. But I think that's an incredible event sounding.
I love the concept, man. I love what they've put together. I think it is phenomenal that what this is happening. You know, obviously, Saki Gabara and Scott Coker have had a great working relationship for years, so this is a very unique situation. But co-promotion to me is cool. You know what I mean? And hell, does this open the door maybe for Kayla Harrison versus Chris Cyborg? Like, I don't necessarily know that. You got to understand, Saki Gabara and Coker have worked together for a long time, and so I think they're able to get through some of the hurdles and the business hurdles that really exist. That might be a little bit tougher to do a Bellator PFL. So, the UFC is never going to co-promote, period, end of story. There's no even sense talking about it. But I think it's good to see other promotions, co-promoting and working together a little bit. And I'm excited about this event, man. And not just co-promoting, but like putting their best on the line to go against each other. And I think that's what's really cool is seeing they're actually putting up their real. It's not just saying, hey, we'll work together and we'll send you, number 20 on the roster, number 28 in this division. No, we're sending champions, we're sending former champions, we're sending top contenders to compete against each other for a year-end event, which I think is super cool. So far, the announcements have been that it'll be tape delayed in the United States. I'm hoping we can find a way to watch it live, even though it will be, kind of a middle of the night type situation.
Are you suggesting watching a pirated
No. A very legalized way of watching is what I'm asking for. I'm hoping that somebody will find a way to make that happen. Whether or not that will end up happening or not, we'll find out. But I'd love to make sure that we can watch it live, even though it will be an odd hour. We'll see.
Did they flip a coin for Horiguchi? How'd that happen? Is he on the Bellator side?
He's on the Bellator squad.
Yeah, how'd that happen?
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
Because the last fight was on with Ryzen.
Right.
Before that had a couple of Bellator, but then obviously before that, Ryzen, then Bellator. Just wonder if they flipped a coin and they're like,
Coker's like, we're coming, but we get Horiguchi.
Yeah.
Sorry, you want to make it happen? We get Horiguchi.
Because, I mean, that could be a bad night for Bellator.
It could be.
I mean, I think if anybody's just thinking like, okay, well, the U.S. fighters are going to win, we've seen what happens when people go over there and don't give credit to some of these Asian fighters. Man.
Hey, you're going to have to travel. You're going to have to
Yep.
fight in a ring. Okay, it's not a cage like you're used to. They're doing it in a ring. That can factor into things as well. So it's going to be a challenge. But I love the fact that they're doing it. And it sounds like at the press conference earlier today, Saki Kawara was saying, hey, maybe we can do this, annually, biannually, something like that. So I love it. I just want to say kudos to them. And kudos to that the art concept fight poster where you put the samurai battle armor against the gladiator battle armor. The gladiator obviously representing the Bellator logo. Pretty damn cool, man. I saw that last night, actually, right when I landed. I was actually driving home from the airport when I saw that on my Twitter feed, and I was like, this is badass. So,
it was pretty badass.
Yeah, it's definitely the old school, Japanese flavor of promotion, but really cool idea. So I'm excited about that. Several months away at this point. We'll have plenty of time to talk about it, but I just want to say it's a unique it's something that doesn't happen very often in sports. So I'm pretty hyped to see it happen. All right, UFC Fight Night 213, Calvin Kattar versus Arnold Allen in the main event, featherweight. Not two of the biggest talkers in the world. So as far as media day that goes today, nothing that really stirred the pot that got you super fired up where you're just going to go like, oh, I wasn't in on this fight before, but now I can't wait. Calvin Kattar in the New England cartel, they got that kind of Belichick approach to him, not too high, not too low.
Yeah.
That New England Patriots, we just get trust in the process and go
just
about our
win.
business. We just do that. Meanwhile, Arnold Allen is just, he's a good dude that's on the way up, that's got an incredible career record, that has built his way to get here, that is coming off a phenomenal performance. But he's just not a big, bold, brash personality. He's a polite kid and doesn't hold back to say how he's feeling. But neither of them are trash talkers. Neither of them even really was. Not especially. I guess Allen was really the only one who really asked about it. Kattar can't say anything about Volkanovski at this point. But Allen, should he win, he could say, hey, why are you trying to walk away from the division when I'm here as the number one contender? I'm the fresh face. I'm the new name on the block. You haven't cleared this place out just yet. But Arnold's the kind of guy to be like, bro, look at what Volkanovski's doing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to step up and say, like, that dude
He was
can go.
praising him.
It was like, that dude can go do whatever the hell he wants to. And you know what? It's funny because on the one hand, I respect somebody that's that honest to be like, bro, that guy has done everything and he can go do whatever he wants. But on the other hand, just the promotional aspect of it, we like to hear people be like, oh, what? Once I arrive, now you need to go to 55. Take the easier fight with Islam Makhachev instead of you're ducking me, Volkanovski.
Yeah.
You're ducking me.
And maybe he'll change his tune, but it definitely harkened back to that whole Alexa Grasso like the other day. It was almost like he's happy being this thing, but he probably wouldn't mind taking another main event before that opportunity even arose.
Which is smart.
Which is very smart, especially looking at Volk. So but again, I think in this sport we have so many times where fighters are quick to try to push for a fight by putting another fighter down.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one where he's like, dude, giving him praise. He's like, I'm happy. Like, he was happy for him. And he's like, let him go do his thing. And good on him. Volk was able to do what he did to get his own title shot, to earn his own title. Now he's able to work it into where he's getting to go fight for another. Good for you, bro. like that's pretty cool. So, no, I thought it was refreshing. And, but yeah, it wasn't like we were hearing any sort of crazy fireworks or talks. It was just like two guys ready to show up to the office and go. And knowing how these guys fight, we don't have to worry about whether there's going to be fireworks on this.
Sure.
They might not have said it verbally today in media day, but we know what we're going to get with these guys. So I'm not too worried about this fight being exciting for us.
Emmett still does have the inside track, and obviously he does have the win over Kattar as well, even though a lot of people felt it should have gone the other way. So, he could potentially stand in Arnold Allen's way as well. So there's some other things that need to happen. Maybe Emmett, fights the winner of this in a number one contender type fight. You do have, you've got Yair up there as well with the win over Ortega. But, gosh, man, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but with Yair, I feel like it's with him. I feel like it's almost like the Diaz brothers or Nate, where you just don't count the chickens until they hatch. You know what I mean? Like, until that fight is there and it's materialized. Yeah. Like, I struggle to put anything together. But I guess the good thing is, with it looking like Volkanovski is going to go have this opportunity to go fight at 55, there's still time to sort this all out, and you could have maybe one or two kind of rounds of the tournament, so to speak, to sort this thing out. But it's a big fight. I mean, the winner of this is, especially for Arnold Allen. I mean, first main event. This is a real big opportunity to break into the top. I mean, you're already right there in the official rankings. He's at number 6. You're going to put your name up there with the others. If it's Calvin Kattar, it's still a big result, but you've had a couple setbacks at some key moments. You're not really leapfrogging anybody, but still, nonetheless, it does keep you up there in those. So it's a big fight at 45. It's just these are those ones I always say, like, it's meaningful, but it's not clear and certain, number one contender, or like, here's the next fight, here's what we're going for. It'll be one of those ones, if we do see Dana on Saturday night, I'm not sure if we will or not, but if we do, where I don't think he's going to be, afterwards going, yep, here's the clear next fight for him, here's what makes sense,
And you make a good point with Emmett, even if Kattar wins, even if it was something completely spectacular, is it going to be enough to leapfrog him over the guy that just beat him?
I don't think so.
It's going to be a real tough ask.
Yeah, I don't think
That's a real tough ask. So, yeah, I mean, Arnold, it's tough for him, and he doesn't have that. He's got a whole bunch of green on the left side. When you go down here, I'm looking at Tapology, a whole lot of green. No red over there.
Yep.
At least not anywhere on this screen. So, yeah, I mean, but it is something that is good. I mean, I know for those of us that are watching the division, it is an exciting division. This is a fight that means a lot. And that's what's perfect about these cards. These are these cards that we always say, these fight nights are perfect for those guys that are fighting for that contendership. And this is a fight, whether it is giving an actual number one contender. If not, it's holding the spot, I guess, of Calvin and where he's at. But, I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt to stay in somebody's face, staying in the mind. Because, I mean, if they're not fighting, if they're not out there winning, especially if they're not headlining, people tend to forget there's just so many events. You know what I mean? So even if he does win, I think he keeps his name fresh in people's brains. And you never know. Injuries can happen to other people. The guys above him, something can happen in training. And that win keeps him right there. And then he can leapfrog over those people. Not that we want anything to happen to those people, but it happens. But, yeah, it certainly seems that the person that has more to gain by a win in this one is definitely Arnold Allen.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, more immediate.
More immediate.
To him.
There you go.
Yeah, more immediate available to him. Co-main event, Tim Means versus Max Griffin, which on paper just looks to me like that's going to be an absolute scrap. And love talking to both those guys today. Both of them, look, they know what they're getting into. They know what type of fights they are. Max Griffin did say that, he's really focused
just
on
wrestling, right? It's going to be a straight wrestling match.
Man, can't wait till they're going to slap hands and sit down, and they're going to go at it.
Just pulling guard right from the get-go.
Right from the beginning. It'll just be, it'll be really who gets the pull first. That's what it'll really boil down to. But no, Max Griffin had an interesting point. He's like, look, heartbreaking loss last time out. But what I really realized is, energy levels. I got cardio and energy levels is what I've really got to weaponize, and I've got to make that an issue. As he said, keep a pace on, and as he said, his coach advised him, make your opponent think it's never going to stop. And I thought that was a great way to say it.
It's such a great visual.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly
it's just like, it's like he's just coming in your face, and he's not. I'm just going to keep coming until I'm not going to stop.
Tell him, Bobby Green.
That's never going away.
Never going away.
Thank you, Bobby, for that
all-time classic. Meanwhile, Tim Means, of course, same thing. It's just you know what you're getting with the Tim Means fight. As he said, maybe I'm not the greatest of all time, whatever. He's like, I know that when you see my name on a bout sheet, like, okay, hold on, we got to watch that fight because it's going to be good. So very cowboy-esque in that regards. I did think it was cool too that Max Griffin shared that story that in his UFC debut he ended up in a sauna with Tim Means, and they just were kind of talking, and Tim Means was like giving him advice over the specific advice he had was over autograph seekers. He's like, make sure when you see these guys, because you see them out there where they've got like 20 posters or 15 gloves or whatever. Like, clearly they're not just collecting autographs for their personal collection. Like, they're just collecting autographs to sell on eBay. And Tim Means gave him the advice of like, hey, make sure you ask who to make it out to personalize it.
It's so true.
It's so funny, man.
And that was back at UFC 202, and that was January, June, July, August 20th, 2016.
That's been a while.
That's a long time.
It's been a while, man. It's crazy. Do people even get autographs anymore? Is it just it's just selfies now, right?
Selfies, but I mean, you see the diehards that sit at the hotel, like the fighter host. I'll still see that, or those Well, they used to do the open workouts and
right?
then some of the forward-facing stuff they would, but yeah, I mean, you don't see it quite as much, but I think it's just you just don't see people hanging out at places like they used to. But I'm sure it still happens.
Yeah.
But it is such a good point because I remember I heard other fighters say that exact same thing, like get a name, because then you know that they're keeping it. If they're asking you to do multiple things, it's like, bro, most people would be happy you sign one thing. If you're asking me to sign three or four, you're gonna resell
I
something.
remember if you could think back years and years ago, I think the worst spot for it was MGM Grand Garden Arena because all the workout rooms were down there, but that arena is connected internally to the hotel, and there's
Right.
no like there used to not be security stopping you from going there, and so like people would just camp outside of like the workout rooms, and they'd have literally like, can you sign this? And then they start moving, and they've got like
Yeah.
30 of them or whatever, you know what I mean? They're getting you to sign all of them, and I mean, respect the hustle, I guess, for trying to make your money on the side, but
I'm sure some of our listeners
probably did the same thing.
did the same.
Well, I mean, look, it's one thing to collect it personally for yourself. I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with making a business out of it, I guess, but you can just see that the fighter's like, what are you, come on, man.
Yeah.
What are you doing here?
Let's kick him a little something as a thank you.
Waldo Cortez Acosta and Jared Vandera in a heavyweight fight. Cortez Acosta making his debut. Obviously looked incredible in claiming his contract on the Contender Series against Vandera, who's in a bad spot, but I thought Vandera was really, I don't know, refreshed. He's always goofy and telling jokes, but we got past the jokes a little bit today, and we pressed past it, and he kind of got down to it. And I thought it was kind of cool. He talked about the fact that he moved to King's MMA, and he said he straight up had just kind of lost his passion for the sport and all the stuff around it, but went to King's MMA. Obviously, you get a chance to I've never heard anybody train with Rafael Cordero and walk away with anything bad to say about him, but of course he was praising it and just saying what a genius Rafael is, and then also just how great the whole community and that squad is there in the field there, and he's like, man, it has really ignited my passion. And he had said, hey, this is my final fight on my UFC deal, but I thought it was cool that he mentioned, I know I'm in kind of a must-win type situation here in terms of keeping my contract, but because I've kind of found my passion again, like I'm not really worried about it, because if they do release me or don't re-sign me, I'm going to keep going anyway, and I'm going to get my way back there. So not an easy matchup here in his final fight on his deal. Cortez Acosta is raw. He's green. I mean, he's still new in his career, but is a specimen of an athlete for sure. A tough one, but I don't know. I guess I would say if you want to totally write Vandera off because of his past results, I guess maybe do it at your own risk. Now he's facing somebody a lot more raw, and again, it does seem like a reinvention, and through that reinvention has come a different perspective. And look, this game is so mental, man. This game is so mental that sometimes that can play into things, especially at the heavyweight level.
Yeah, and in this one, I mean, I leaned on my for my staff picks, even though this wasn't one of the ones that I don't think really. No, yeah, this one does matter. I leaned on the fact that the Contender Series, my bonus factor.
You love the Contender Series.
I love the people that go through the Contender Series, and I remember that fight. I remember thinking like he had a lot of power, but he definitely still needed to refine some sort of stuff. So hopefully he's answered those things, because I think Jared's smart enough fighter that he can cause problems for Acosta if he's not fully there. But man, I don't know. I'm excited to see it because I love when the heavyweights get out there and just throw hands. So I'm hoping it's that, and I hope it's not, one guy that's being too cautious and another guy that's just holding the other guy's arms. I hope we're actually going to get the fight that we want to see, which is two big guys just going out there and throwing some big, crazy bombs. But, yeah, I mean, but in terms of their personality, I mean, like Jared, I mean, how fun was that dude today? I love that he was just self-deprecating about his mustache and was just chatting, and he's just funny as all get out, and that's the kind of character you like seeing in the UFC. I like to see him when he comes to the media days, but you gotta
get wins.
You gotta get wins.
That's it.
Unfortunately, but it should be a fun fight. It should be a fun fight. But yeah, when I went on my leans, I used I leaned towards the Contender Series, but I started thinking today maybe that wasn't the right play, but we'll just see. As much as he was going out there joking and keeping it lighthearted, and then let alone having the pressure of, is this the last fight that's going to be on the contract? Are they going to give me something else? How much do I have to go out there and perform? Because that can affect somebody. I don't know. just lean, like he has a lot more stuff on his shoulders and heads, and instead of this other guy that's coming in there trying to make a big splash. But I also didn't feel like the Waldo coming in is going to be like, oh, I'm so great, like they put me on the main card for my very first one. I'm going to whatever. That could be because just the lack of English, because he was trying to speak in English, whereas we might have got more shit talking if he actually spoke in his native language. But the way that the translator was adding a bunch of extra shit, it might have, who knows what we would have heard anyways, coming out of it. But no, it should be a good fight. I mean, who doesn't like a good heavyweight fight?
Yeah.
So it should be fun. I'm hoping it's fun. I hope somebody's gonna get knocked out.
Josh Frim versus Tresean Gore. I spoke to Josh Frim on a video call a week or two ago. Good dude, had a setback in his short notice debut. Now he's had a full camp. Now he's excited. Feels like he's got to get a win to truly prove his legitimacy as a UFC fighter. But Tresean Gore, man, once again, I've said it before. I like this guy, man. There's just something about his authenticity, his faith, that just gets me. And today, man, it was on a different level. Just the emotion that was there, man. I mean, obviously, number one, I just asked him about that. A man that, believes there's a greater purpose for yourself, and then, you come in and you have a couple setbacks. What does that feel like, and is that difficult to kind of balance? He said, yeah, it is, but made some changes, moved out to Fortis MMA, slept on an inflatable mattress in his brother's apartment, and just did the things that he felt he needed to do to change, and then just talked about and really was fighting back the tears as he talked about the fact that, where he came from, there's no guarantee that he would ever be anything. And now, he feels like, A, he's here, but B, there's a long way to go. And it's just that stark reminder that sometimes I think we take for granted, and that, maybe, the hardcore fans that are listening to us don't ever do, but it is easy to take for granted sometimes. We're seeing 24 athletes a week, and that's only in the UFC. And we might see 24 here, 24 at Bellator, and you forget that each of them has their own journey, their own struggles, and then, so he's talking about not only where he came from and what he saw growing up, and his dad's in prison, and, all these hurdles that he's had to overcome, but then he says, I'm sorry, I'm emotional, but, my mom just had her leg amputated because of diabetes, and I want to make sure that I get her the best rehab possible to make sure that, she doesn't die. And just, I don't know, man. It just, and I know it's not easy, and even he seemed to be almost a little embarrassed that he was as emotional as he would be. I would say you definitely don't need to be, but I get it. You're like, I'm a cage fighter. I'm sitting up here in a media day with fighting tears back. But it's just such a stark reminder of, like, every one of these men and women, man, they've got their own journey, their own struggle, and they're going through some shit. And Tresean's is, bigger than most, I guess. But just, I don't know, confirmed once again to me that I like this kid, and I wish him nothing but the best, man. And like I said, I like Josh Frim too after my conversation with him. And again, it's his dream. He's been working years to get here. He lost his debut as well. I mean, it's just, it sucks that somebody else, and that the great thing about this sport and the terrible thing about this sport, somebody's got to lose. But I don't know, Tresean Gore, if you got a chance to go watch his full media day interview, man, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us after it was done were just like, wow, that was like, it was just super heavy, and it was just one of those things that, it just brings it back into perspective, what some of these fighters go through. And, you might complain about, oh, my workload today is really bad. How can life go on? And then you're seeing people that are having real struggles, real stuff going on, and you're just like, wow, never mind. I'm going to shut up about my small little problems, And we've seen them in plenty other media days, other interviews, and never that level of emotion sort of came out to that point, It was just like you could see how much that it was weighing on him. Wanting to provide for his family, taking care of his mother, wanting to prove to himself and to those around him of what can be possible with hard work and effort. And it was moving. It was moving, and you could tell it was right at the beginning. I mean, when you asked your first sort of question, it wasn't even like you tried to throw him something to cause him to release these sort of emotions and whatever. And immediately as things were starting to go on, his eyes started like watering, and you could tell that it was almost like I'm dealing with this stuff. Can I please just get this off my chest?
Right.
Like he was looking for it, and I'm glad that we were able to like help him kind of work that out because it was all the much more valuable for us instead of just saying, oh hey, you're going to go out and kick your opponent's butt. You gave real life shit to really put it into perspective and made me thankful of what I'm have in my own life. And I think anybody that would watch it, how can you not feel empathy for what he's going through, but also just be thankful for what you have? Because we take for granted that a lot of these fighters have to go through so much stuff even just to get their foot in the door, and then to be able to battle all that and still go out and be able to perform at a high level in this arena is just crazy. It's maddening. But if you weren't a fan of his before, I mean, like, it wasn't that I wasn't a fan of his before. I just wasn't never. I didn't have as much to invest me into his story
Mm-hmm.
because you don't really know. I didn't really know his story, but after that, how can you not pull for him and feel fully invested in this kid and not want him to get like good things and be rewarded for his effort and his mindset? And not that you ever want to pick people just because you're like, oh, this one I don't really know the two guys, I'm just gonna randomly pick this, because we do that. But to actually hear somebody's stories, I'm completely pulling for him that night. I want him to win. I want him to be able to get the things he needs. But it was just nice to see him just open up. I feel like he's been more closed in the past, like just maybe not talking about it, but who wants to talk about that sort of shit?
Right.
Like I certainly wouldn't want to. And I mean, a lot of fighters probably feel like the last thing they want to do is burden people with their problems, because they're along with themselves. They understand everybody has problems, but man, something like this, it's like, bro, it's okay. Talk about it, because that shit's a lot worse than most other people are ever going to deal with. So share it, pass the load on, pass the burden a little bit. I think that's why you find some people that are so devout in their faith and their belief in religion and God and other stuff, because that gives them that shoulder, that gives them that thing to kind of help put meaning on some of the stuff that they're going through. That there's a bigger purpose for all that shit that they're having to go through. And this kid, he's coming in looking good, but man, it was just so heavy. It was very moving. And but it wasn't, because we've had some of those things that happened in the back before, where it's just like, oh, you feel sort of drained because you're listening to these stories and you feel so bad. I still felt like it ended positive because of what he had been through, but he just that, taking it on and just push for the good things and had that belief, man. I felt good for him at the end. I felt good that he was able to get that off his chest. But I remember, as it was happening, I was like, there were some follow-up questions I wanted to ask, but then I was like, how do you follow up that?
Can't make this guy go through that.
His last quote, that we sort of ended on, was just so powerful. That was just like, you said it all right there. Anything after that is just taking away from that great shit that you just said. Like, feel kind of silly to ask something else. I think I was going to ask about dealing with the trolls and the haters, and was it better? When did it get worse? Was it bad beginning? I'm like, that's just going to take away from the super powerful shit he just said. And that's why I think it was good that it was a smaller media day. We were able to get great moments, and then it was like, okay, cool, we can pull back, we're done. And not somebody that just says, oh, okay, tell me about your fucking tattoo, or whatever, and I'm just pulling on a thing. I'm not picking on any particular person, but it's just like somebody could throw out something random right after something weird, that power. It seems so desensitive to what they just said.
Yeah.
At some point it's just like, okay, I'm gonna back away. I'm gonna let you end on that really powerful moment.
And speaking of these people that reach out to fighters via social media to hate on them,
yeah,
I pray it's just a bunch of idiot kids. Like, if you're a grown ass adult, like, reaching out to somebody,
what's wrong with you?
Even if you're a kid, there's something wrong with you. Like, you should know better, but I just don't get that shit.
Yeah.
Dustin Jacoby versus Khalil Roundtree will open up the main card. That could be absolute fireworks for sure between those two guys. Phil Hawes and Roman Dolidze is the featured prelim, which Phil Hawes has looked phenomenal as of late. Roman Dolidze can certainly look good as well. Did say that he wouldn't mind facing Paul Craig at some point, since they look alike and they might move up a weight class. That kind of cracked me up a little bit. Andre Arlovsky is back. Didn't get to see Andre today, but he's facing Marcos Rogerio de Lima. And honestly, man, the rest of his card. Look,
we saw him walk up the stairs. He peeked into the room.
Joseph Holmes versus Junyoung Park. Chase Hooper versus Steve Garcia. Cody Durden versus the newcomer Carlos Mota. And CFFC vet Christian Rodriguez against Joshua Weems. Look, I think stylistically, as usual, I mean, look, there's very few cards you look at and be like, oh, my God, this is just going to be stunningly boring. I get it, man. You know, it's not UFC 280. It's not a pay-per-view, but I do think it's going to be a decent night. You can balance it out with a little Anderson Silva. And I said it the wrong way again. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva. I'll get it right. I apologize.
Jake's never going to subscribe to our show
Never.
Never.
And then there also is a Bellator show earlier in the day as well. That's over in Italy. Mensar Barnoi, who was kind of a newcomer, but been around a while, but a newcomer to Bellator. He'll be on there. Fabian Edwards is on there as well. Definitely has that European flavor as it should. You know, hopefully they get their full kind of European series rolling again. I know they were making some big strides over there in Europe. But that event is also happening on Saturday as well. So a full day. It's all loaded on one day. I kind of wish it was spread out. I like it when it's like a little bit on Friday night, a little bit on Saturday night. But this is going to be one of those multi-screen, multi-things going on.
I know. Apparently you're going to be trying to pirate a video while you're out there in the
Sir,
watching
I would never. I would never pirate a video. I mean, if you pirate a video, by the way, don't ever complain about fighter pay afterwards.
Yeah,
okay.
that's 100% true.
I just want to make sure that is
you are
on
part
the
of the problem, sir.
Exactly.
At that
right.
point, you are part of the problem.
All right. Listen, I'm gonna go enjoy this fine, beautiful weather. I got a couple days left of October. Sneak out there and do that. But make sure you're logged in, you're subscribed, you're leaving us some ratings, some reviews. We always do appreciate that feedback. It helps out. And of course, patreon.com/the MMA Roadshow if you want to help take your support to the next level, as we certainly appreciate it. Busy Saturday. We'll have it all covered. I guess we'll have a hell of a lot to talk about on the and a half episode. So look forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, thanks for listening.